What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. A lot of times, the original source for my inspiration to talk about these topics comes from reflecting on my own struggle, my own life, but also life in general around me. Back on episode 280, back in around February, called Compelled Conflict, I touched on this topic from the angle of having no choice but to confront certain things head on. Since then, I have found the term forcing function, which totally captures the spirit of this idea past just conflict. It takes it into other areas of life that I'll touch on in this episode. The term forcing function is still the same idea that at times a situation is created, constraints are present, doors are closed, and that very reality's job, its function, is to force you to take an action. Whether that is to change, whether that is to affect, or whether that is to accept. The situation itself is the forcing function that pushes the hands of fate to mold you and call for you to become something more from it. Now, most situations in life call for us to do this anyway. But there are some we feel more stuck in than others. Some that come with more force than others, or feel like they are applying more force and pressure than others. I am all too familiar with the suffocation of being in a situation that I feel powerless in and feel like it is beyond my ability to do anything about. And anytime I have felt like this, it's almost like going through the stages of grief. There's layers to responses our body goes through when, speaking broadly, polyvagal theory, it's called. When confronted with a threat, our body has three options: fight, flight, or freeze. And we go through each one of these in sequential order, and we also get out of them in sequential order, called the polyvagal ladder. When we are taken out of our safety state, you first go to flight first, usually. The most natural instinct when a predator is in front of you is to run. And if you can't run, and or running is not an option, like you are on a cliff or the predator will outrun you anyway in a chase and it's not worth the try, then you stay and fight. And if you can't fight and you can't flee because you are outmatched by the opposition, then you freeze, like a deer staring at headlights, stuck frozen in fear, probably still very much and even more so in harm's way, but indecisive. The car is headed towards you, but you're not sure if it's going to swerve left or swerve right to try and avoid you, so your system just shuts down and stays in place and hopes not to die. This is dorsal vagal shutdown, freeze state. And to get out of this situation, this freeze state, usually we climb the ladder back up the ranks. From freeze to fight, then to flight, and then hopefully back to a safety state and not kicked right back down the ladder. Now, since we are not deer or encountering predators on a daily basis, this is what happens to us when most of life's challenges come our way that don't necessarily look like predators. As soon as you perceive your safety is disrupted, your body automatically decides to enter flight, fight, or freeze in place. And the problem is, sometimes we get stuck in a certain way of being in response to the same type of situations or threat in general. You either become the kind of person who always runs away, you become the kind of person who always stays and fights it out, or you become the person who freezes and cowers and goes and hides. And you get stuck in your type of responses in dealing with certain type of threats that come up. And what I am saying is, these sort of situations in your life that call forth a pattern response from you are actually calling for you to break the pattern by recognizing this tendency of yours, by watching it. And it's easier said than done. As someone who has always fought and also tends to take flight, having found myself in a situation that activated my freeze response for the first time in my life has now shown me the difficulty of simply just saying to you to change. or to do something different. Maybe it's not that easy. Being stuck in a freeze state is not as easy to climb back out of because all the challenges in this state are dampened by avoidance and attempting to hide because you're not living. Whether you could change the situation or not doesn't even register because you are too busy escaping from reality. And to break out of this dorsal vagal shutdown, a person who starts trying to live their life again will experience the fight first going up the ladder. They will find themselves disturbed immensely by all the things that they were comfortably avoiding and try to fight them aggressively. Their first response will usually be to try to fight it, to be aggressive, use all that energy that was pent up and frozen away. And if that doesn't work, they will try and run away, but still seeking safety, still trying to climb up the ladder in an attempt to live, instead of shutting back down to freeze. These situations, whether you see them for what they are or not, are functioning to force you to keep you in motion, to keep you in the game, to sharpen you, to develop you into the kind of person that can handle tragedies and triumphs of life like these. They have a function. So we have to cherish the difficulty, for it might be the host of your calling. Everything you're not makes you everything you are. Every constraint, every limitation, every curb and boundary is not set up to restrict you from living life. It's actually presenting an opportunity by pointing out the restrictions you are currently facing and to do something about them. Every dead end that you feel you are in is asking you to see something there to inform you about your future turns and directions. This isn't wishful thinking. It isn't blind optimism. It isn't everything happens for a reason. There's no magical thinking required here. Just the very fact that you are in a situation you feel bound in, constrained, just the mere reality of that, presents you with a few options. I always say, what are the alternatives? What can you really do? And although on the surface you may feel like it's unfair, you may feel like you are set up to fail, you feel like you have been dealt the wrong hands, you feel discouraged, I can assure you that while you can choose the option of diminishing the life within you and live in accordance to the constraints you feel, that's the alternative you can choose, or you can also choose to use those same constraints creatively to work your way out of it. But that requires you to sit with it, to feel the force, to sit in the heat, to not distract yourself, to burn a little. And there are times this is so painful that I would much rather do anything else. I would much rather jump out of a window than to sit in the discomfort. And that is when I come back to this question. What is the situation forcing me to become? Why am I in it? What would have to happen? What would this look like if this difficulty, this challenge, this situation I feel stuck in would just be a great story to tell of how I overcame? And that presents and clarifies its own set of options and decisions to make. And sure, sometimes if you can't get out, you are being called to go in, to assess, to confront the reality that you may have been avoiding, to confront yourself and look nakedly at your own inadequacies, to accept. But at all times, you are being forced to expand, to be more. I love you, family. Stay true always. I'll see you on the next show.